an all-wheel drive RAV4 and drained out all the fluid and thought he put the plug back in and put on another 4 or 5 quarts into the engine, and the engine ran great. Smoked a little bit because it was over full, but then the transmission didn't move very well and started slipping. Well, when he got down about $3,000–4,000 later, he decided that we were going to do his oil changes. So, it is a costly thing, but if you want to do it, there's a lot of people out there that want to. There's the drain plug. It is a 14mm nut, and you will need a special wrench to take the filter. I want to show you guys, ladies, the underside of this car. A lot of people don't understand, have never been underneath this. You have your exhaust system that goes front to rear, and you have all these little lines going back. You have 2 brake lines going back there, and then you have 2 fuel lines going back there. What happens after 5, 10, 15 years, it starts to rot. All your suspension parts get squeaky, dry, rubber. It's dry, squeaks. So when you come in to the shop for a rattle or whatever, or a squeak, it could be you have your 2 lower control arms. These are called your lower control arms, ladies, okay? Here's your front brake caliper. Here's your axle. It's called the CV axle, okay? After multiple years, these things get dry. They make noise. So sometimes it's not as easy to find a noise, squeak, rattle as you would think, because, oh, you can hear that, but realistically you have everything in the front, and you've got the same thing in the back except for the axles. It takes time, so the better information that you can give us definitely helps with that type of diagnosis. A little bit about the brake system. This is a brake caliper, and this vehicle actually has, I took all 4 wheels off because it has 4-wheel disc brakes. All of our Camrys 2012 has 4-wheel disc brakes. This pretty shiny silver thing on all 4 wheels is called a brake caliper. Inside the brake caliper we have these black things that are called brake pads. The caliper squeezes against the pads, which in turn squeezes against the rotor, which in turn stops you. These, in New England, love to rot. We like salt on our roads, sand, a lot of dirt roads. These are all factors on how these wear. Most brake jobs, what happens is the brakes really don't wear out. Is the pads, see the black pads, ladies, and all the black pads, and these little silver things here are spacers. Those are called shim and fit kits. What happens is the pad sticks, and as we apply the brakes, the pads don't release all the way because there's excessive rust on them. Did you get dirty? Oh, I got a rag. I got some rag. That happens pretty regularly. And over time, there's the dirty face. That is a clean rag, by the way. Over time, this is what your brake rotor is going to look like. See how dirty and nasty that is? Okay, one side isn't too bad, but see that side right there? That's the inside on what this tin piece is called the backing plate. That's where most of the corrosion is. If we were to attempt to take and put this on our brake lathe, we have a lathe that machines these nice and clean. All you got is all this pitting in here. You're going to have to take off so much material. It's going to make this rotor thin, and then after a few hard stops or after a long trip coming off the bypass or something and you apply the brakes, your steering wheel will shake. And what's happening is this starts to warp because we've taken material off from the rotor, made it thinner so it doesn't dissipate the heat. Okay, so
you're gonna bump your head.
Oh, I've done it. I have. The hair loss is from skinning. But this is usually you'll be able to machine them once, maybe twice. But
when you machine one,
it cleans. They will look just like this. We have this machine that hooks up to the wheel, and it's got really sharp blades on it, and it'll machine this nice and smooth, just like that, and it'll look like brand new metal. You can only do it so many times. That is correct. The more you machine them, you're taking material away. You're going to make the rotor thinner. This is a vented rotor. okay? It allows for the dissipation of heat, but if that material is no longer there, it just gets too hot and it will shake. So that's, I wanted to show you, I looked for some pads today, but they empty the trash so often around here, I couldn't find any for you.
Is there any preventive maintenance you can do on rotors? Speaking from somebody
There
who
really isn't.
seems to go through them?
What you could do is, it is a costly thing. Every year or every year and a half, you could bring it in and say, you know, it just doesn't seem to be working right. And they can take this all apart, take the caliper off and free up your pads. Of course, with every brake job, we do that anyway. And there's really not a preventive. You know, it's kind of a waste of money because you're going to have to put brakes on it anyway, eventually. So at that time, we clean off all the rust, we put all new hardware on. They don't look as pretty as this. This car, next year won't look like this. We live in New England. These days, I mean, it's pretty right now. It's going to be pretty ugly next year, and it's going to be even uglier the next year after that. So, any questions on any of this? And see, the rear is the same way. You have the brake rotors, and these are your control arms. This vehicle, when they ask you if you want a two-wheel or four-wheel alignment, you never do a two-wheel alignment. The only time you do a two-wheel alignment is on like a pickup truck or something like that. Nothing that has adjustments in the back. Anything that has adjustments in the back, you must do the rear, set the rear up first, because the front goes to wherever the rear is. You know, it's kind of a rear steer. If the rear is off, it's going to make the front off. And the steering will never be straight. And you'll continue to wear tires.
Wayne?
Yes.
Question, getting a little bit more into the brakes, is, you know, do you find that if people if ladies could be more proactive by changing pads, not getting to the point that they get so worn that they have to replace rotors? Was there any suggestions there? Or is that just not the case anymore because of the elements that we're dealing with?
Yeah, it's all about the elements. Now,
Yeah.
I lived in Florida for a handful of years. I've never worked on such a clean car my entire life. Brakes down there just never, they only wore out every 3-4 years. Here it's a different story. Usually about every 2, depending on braking. Yes. Well, yes.
Never good.
All of the brake pads, ladies, have what we call an indicator on them. It's a little stainless steel clip that will never rot off. And when the pad gets down low, as it turns, it will continuously squeal. And another, what's that? Grinding is not a good thing. What you can do, though, to help, especially during the winter season and mud season, is when you wash your car, don't be afraid to take the hose to these wheels. You got the wheels on, stick them in the little holes, spray your brakes down. It's okay. What you're doing is you're washing the dirt, salt, debris out of there. They may make a little bit of noise when you first take off. They'll dry out. They'll dry out. They'll be okay.
Now, is there a way to, they wear out, mine, they wear out like every year. Is it the way you drive, or is it, that's just the way it is?
It could be the way you drive. But, you know, my significant other, she puts gas in the car and she goes. And then, all of a sudden, she'll say, hey, it's making noise. How long's it been? Oh, not too long. It's not a week. Well, it happens, you know. So, the more you can, I guess, pay attention to your vehicle, you know, there are warning signs, and you should pay attention to them.
See, and I'm young and I turn on the radio and I don't listen to it.
You're not allowed.
Probably one of my problems. Except when I have a child.
Brakes are brakes. They could prematurely wear a little bit, but they're doing their job. If you want to drive like that, it's your car, and it will stop every time. If you tend to have a problem with it stopping, that's an indication that something's going on. You should definitely check it. What you can also check out is, depending on how nasty the outside of the wheels look after driving, or you've been driving your car for the last year or so, you notice that there's a lot of dust on the outside, and there's some silver stuff. Like usually, the silver stuff is usually metal filings. You've gone too far. Okay? And that will show up on your wheels. So,
my husband doesn't have it downshifting into lower gears instead of putting it through on the brakes. Does it
Yes.
really save the brakes?
yes, it does. Actually, ladies, it does.
Drives me crazy.
Well, all of our automatic transmissions these days, all the 2000 since maybe 2008, 2009, if you notice that on the automatic vehicles, if you're slowing down, you can feel it starting to chug or pull back a little bit. What the transmission is doing, it has an intelligence to it, and it knows that you're slowing down. It will downshift for you. So, another thing to do is if you have an automatic transmission, on your shifter, you all know what the OD button is for? Overdrive. Okay? What it does is it turns a 4-speed transmission into a 5-speed transmission. Gives you an extra overdrive. Turns yeah, I already said that. But anyway, when you come down off an off ramp, if you want to push that button so the OD light indicator illuminates on your dash, it will downshift one gear prematurely for you and help you slow down, so you don't have to apply the brakes. Or it's hard. It all helps. It all helps.
That was a good point, Kathy. The other thing I wanted to mention, because as you leave later on this evening, there is a sheet of paper giving you information and helping you get better fuel efficiency. And one of those is the overdrive, and improving. So of course, downshifting helps with the brakes, saving the brakes. It's kind of like, with a manual transmission, I would let up on the clutch,
Right.
but,
And you would just
used
coast
to not
or
ride my
stop.
clutch,
Yeah.
So there are a lot of neat things like that are helpful, but you can grab that on your way out as well as additional literature. So that we're not running too far off schedule.
I think we're
Here we
okay.
go.
There's one last thing I'd like to show you ladies. What happens a lot of times, especially in the snow, everything these days, of course, is all plastic. See these nice plastic sheets here? In the wintertime, the snow loves to collect on them, and then they've got the snow bankings and the little curves that we always, at the front of the parking. We always hit this and tear it off. Okay? It happens a lot. You could be going down the road and this thing will be flapping around or be even dragging. When you come in, if you ever see one dragging, it's real quick and simple to reinstall. Fortunately, nobody will have any of the pins, but just come by and we'll reach underneath there and put another plastic pin in for you. It's a common thing. You haven't damaged your car, usually, unless you got up over it. So that's something that happens pretty regularly. Don't be too alarmed with it. Swing through. We'll reinstall it for you. Just push it up in there, put a new pin in for you.
Does it snow, like when it's a snowstorm, when you drive over the snow, the car's so slow, does that do anything to the whole bottom of the car?
Cleans it.
That's not all it does?
That's it.
The snow's like hard.
Well, it depends. If there are large chunks of ice, it could damage it. Yeah, but all in all,
Because you can hear the snow like